right, we had Timcast IRL at AmericaFest.
In our modern society, what better way to take over society than, of course, have people enslave themselves? And I think that's exactly what's happening right now. And I think bullets have been replaced with tweets, bombs have been replaced with videos, and right now we are being engineered in fifth generational warfare in order to destroy the free human spirit. And that's the bigger fight that's happening right now that people need to realize more than ever.
And this is why I always say violence doesn't work, because it's something they know how to control. It's something they know how to manipulate. They know that it instills fear and is a weapon for them. That doesn't mean it's easy to combat. It just means you need to understand the weapons they're using, and it's psychological manipulation.
Yeah, you make better technology. Basically, social media is not a weapon on its face. It's a powerful force that can be weaponized. And it has been, unfortunately, by, it looks like Alphabet, Meta, Twitter, these things. But Minds, for instance, we would sit around and have ethics conversations with how addictive should we make this technology? It's 88% is too much for me. I don't want people constantly on it. I want them to use it for the function that it's deserved.
You could have made it 100%.
You can make it like an addictive, you make it 101, something that someone's never even seen. It's more powerful than what you thought could be the most addictive substance on earth. It's not ethical. We don't take information at Minds. We don't want your data because it can be scraped. The key, I think, is open source code. So you know what the code is telling people, and you want access to your data, and you want to limit, you want to opt in when you want to opt in. You don't want them to harvest your metrics.
You're basically saying power to the people.
And I think people should own their own data and make money off of it.
And our
power to the people.
Boom. Boom. Love it. That was that's the what a weird event hall. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it was cool. So I was there live. I was there kind of in front row, so it was really cool to see how TPUSA did the Timcast IRL podcast. They've never done anything like that before, so it was really a good experience to see how to do that live. But yeah, it was really, really good. They had James Lindsay, Steve Bannon, and Harmeet Dillon, and I'm forgetting if they had anyone else. And Charlie Kirk on as panelists. But yeah, it was really good. And yeah, Ian gave us a huge shout out. I'd suggest everyone go check out the full thing. It's awesome.
Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, Ian Crossland, minds.com/Ian Crossland, who's now a co-host at Timcast IRL, is also a co-founder at Minds. And me and Ian go way back, all the way back to like 2012. We were, he came down like in the very early stages of Minds, and we were roommates for years and just building this thing. And he is, he's a great human. So I recommend people check out his stuff. And, all those guys have been so supportive, everyone at Timcast. And so, yeah, we have an exciting announcement coming up with them. And so stay tuned for first thing in January. But so the main thing we want to talk about was this new Twitter league.
Yeah, if I can get there we go. Yeah, and I will say it was fun, like with Ian backstage. Oh, we lost the screen. We were talking about Graham Hancock's new documentary. We're talking about UFOs. We're talking about all kinds of stuff. It was really, really awesome. It was fun.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, it's I guess a couple more thoughts on your experience there. So, for people who don't know, AmericaFest was put on by TPUSA, obviously a big conservative group. Sean, did you feel like, were there any discussions or panels or anything that, like, were there any lefties there, or was it pretty much just, conservative? Well, I guess Tim showed there. Tim's kind of like their lefty. Yeah.
Right. And that's why I was so excited. So like TPUSA, yeah, definitely fosters to conservatives, moderate conservatives, hardline conservatives, people new to, being a conservative. So for me, it's always tough, right? Because like I like to see kind of both sides represented. I like to have the discussion. I don't really like being talked at events. I know there's an audience for it, and sometimes you got to like rally the troops and do the rah stuff, but that's not necessarily my favorite thing to see. But as far as the event, like they do an amazing job. The conference center looked incredible. I think 10 to 12,000. I think 12,000. Something like that. I mean, don't quote me on the numbers. They had a lot of people. So that was
there were 12,000 people in that room.
And yeah, so they have like the main stage. Yeah, the main stage seats that they have like workshops, like small rooms on the side also. But
Wow,
yeah,
that was 12,000 people in the audience. It looked like maybe a few thousand. That's crazy.
so yeah, so what I mean, they're like in and out. So what was excited to me, because there's a lot of people on the floor too. There's a lot of people talking because it is a work event for a lot of people too. You know, people are making
Right.
connections, and there's a
Yeah,
lot
and
of
it's a whole weekend, so it's like people coming out. Yeah,
people
yeah.
go in and out. Yeah. And what was exciting for me, like for the Tim show, is he's kind of like the dark horse. Like he doesn't belong there. And it was really smart, in my opinion, for TPUSA to have him, just to kind of have that, at least, have a little more discussion and a little, where it's not rah-rah and people can, Tim asked some really good questions on stage. It was really interesting. That kind of counter the narrative of the conservatives. So it was really, really good to see. But great conversation between all of them. But yeah, I was talking to some people too about like Steven being there, someone like Destiny who's on the left. And what was kind of funny is there were a ton of Destiny fans there. But obviously, like with what we strive for with our events is like having both of those sides. So I don't know, that's just kind of like my thing. But as far as like the event goes, it was really well done, really professional. We met a lot of people. So
Yeah, I know what you mean in the kind of the whole like being talked at type approach where it's like that's just not like I don't need to be like rah rah.
yeah.
Like I'm happy to just go to an event and sit there and listen. Like
Here's some things you may not agree with, challenge you a little bit.
yeah,
Like,
I don't need to be. I can understand how that kind of expectation can be set because certain speakers do know how to fire up the crowd. And yeah, so anyway, I think that's interesting. But like, yeah, I just feel like no, like if it's comedy, okay, that's one thing.
right.
If it's like a political speech, okay, but I don't know.
And
It's
Tim's, they did take live Q&A, which I thought was really smart too, because
mhm.
gives people a little interaction, because a lot of people want to have that interaction element to it too. So, and it kind of keeps everyone on their toes, and it keeps everyone engaged. So yeah, I thought that was really smart. They did that too.
Nice. All right, cool. So moving on. So Twitter aided the Pentagon in its covert online propaganda campaign. Internal documents showed Twitter whitelisted CENTCOM accounts that were then used to run its online influence campaign abroad. So so this is the most recent Twitter leak, and what's fascinating about it is that for the past years we've just been hearing, oh my God, there's foreign interference, foreign government propaganda on social networks. And what this proves is that actually it was domestic propaganda, and that the US was literally creating these. If you scroll down, I don't know if it'll show any screenshots of the accounts. Keep going. Just scroll through the whole article. I just want to see what it shows here. So keep going. Just keep scrolling while I'm talking. But so they set up all of these Arabic accounts on Twitter, and they were basically just spreading like kind of US centric propaganda. And Twitter was amplifying them. So Twitter was basically giving them this sort of like background boost. And they were sent like these lists of accounts, and they set up these secret portals. There was even a industry-wide social media communication portal, where Facebook and others were included, so that when we talk about coordination for misinformation campaigns, this was happening. So it's all just it's crazy. I mean, because it's not to say that there's no foreign, every government, every country is using social media to spread I'm sure they're all engaged in a certain amount of propaganda, but the fact that, there was literally collaboration between CENTCOM and Twitter, and like Yoel, obviously at the center of it, is really wild, because it's one thing for a government to go in and use a social media platform like on their own, but then it's a completely different thing to, collaborate with the executives.
Yeah. I mean, and they knew about it. Like, what was their end goal? What was the point of these like Nerf accounts or bot accounts or whatever?
I would have to go through and read it again, but I think it was kind of like pro-US, kind of military propaganda.
Interesting. Yeah, because if you go like on Weibo, which is the Chinese Twitter, if you go on like the Chinese TikTok, I mean, it's pretty blatant, like their propaganda. And it's interesting because you'll see like, hundreds of thousands of accounts like spreading the same like pro-China propaganda, anti-American propaganda. Like when COVID was first discovered, the Chinese government was blaming COVID on us because that was the first time like the Americans took part in the like the military games or whatever, and the military games were held in Wuhan, and that's when the flu kind of started coming out, was around that time frame. So all the Weibo, the Chinese TikTok, also they were spreading this narrative that the Americans brought it here through the military games and gave it to us. So they were actually calling it the American virus for like months and months and months. And you just saw like all these different accounts just like sharing the stuff. So it was interesting kind of seeing like the difference between the two platforms,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really shocking, all of this stuff. It's just, it's almost so much you don't even know what to do with the information. Like, it also came out that, the FBI was literally paying Twitter millions of dollars to process these takedown requests. And I mean, like, how is that not bribery? How is, but we don't see any lawsuits yet. I'll be curious when the first lawsuits pop up, and I'll be curious who people sue. Like,
right.
Will people sue Twitter? Will people sue the FBI? That's kind of the big unknown right now. But this is just like, it's just so much information. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Operation Mockingbird.
Vaguely.
It was this CIA program to kind of influence the media.
Okay.
And
yep.
Yeah, they would literally just like bribe convince all of these journalists and whatnot to publish propaganda, and it never really ended, apparently. So
well, we saw that with Moderna and Pfizer as well. I mean, when every segment is brought to you by those companies, it's really hard. And I understand the challenge that the media companies have, where it's really hard to kind of bite the hand that feeds you. It's
well, that's the thing, man. The COVID files haven't even come out yet.
No, I can't wait.
It's gonna be mayhem. It's gonna be so bad. I bet you that it is. I mean, Elon's already been teasing this with the prosecute Fauci thing, but like, it's gonna be bad. It's probably gonna be on a level much worse than even everything we've seen so far, which is as pretty much as bad as it could be. So
I remember it was like 10 years ago. I think it was 60 Minutes. There was an interview with the FBI director at that point. And I forgot who the journalist was I was interviewing, but they asked him straight out, like, is the government working with Facebook to identify people of interest, right? For instance, that was one of the things they brought up. And he was like, no, we don't use Facebook. You know, there's no way for us to process all those images on that platform. He was like, you know, it's just too much. It's just not a good resource for us, yada, yada, yada. And then, you know, 10 years later, this comes out, and then you're like, wait, what happened to that original statement? I think we put that clip up a little while ago, but yeah, it's just it's interesting how that they can't lie about it anymore.
No, they're fully embedded together. Yeah, they can't. And you know, there was a in Lee's piece, there's a reference to Facebook and kind of these industry-wide encrypted communications channels between them all. And you know, it's just like the media is not taking this seriously. Like other companies aren't commenting on it. It's just this we're just in this odd place where it's sort of like bombshell after bombshell after bombshell. And you know, it's going to take time to sink in, and lawsuits take time to prepare. So
yeah,
I'm hoping that's what it is, but
yeah,
it would be really crazy if all this happens and then it's just like, oh well, moving on.
Yeah, moving on to right, exactly. They need another Ukraine, or they need a, you know, COVID-20 or whatever to move. 22. But yeah, it's crazy. The other thing that's interesting with the Twitter takeover too is just how much Twitter is hemorrhaging money. Like that actually came up on the Tim show in Phoenix, which is interesting. They were saying it's something like $3 to $4 million a day Twitter's losing. And you know, when you see that company losing as much money as they are, is it a surprise that the government's like, hey, we'll pay you for this thing? Is it surprising that they would go that route to get?
Well, they didn't even care. Like the thing is that the way Twitter was structured before, they didn't necessarily care about revenue in the same way that they do now. It was just the whole company was structured differently. And you know, Elon actually was on a space with this guy George Hotz. Have you heard of him?
No.
He's like an AI developer. He came up with this company called Comma AI, which is actually like an open source self-driving company. Oh. And he's been on Lex's show. He's very funny and quirky. And so he's been actually interning at Twitter for the last few weeks. And like he knew Elon, and so anyway, he went there, but then he like quit because he was like, this isn't efficient enough. I'm not having an impact. And so he basically quit, and then he had the space, and I guess Elon hopped on the space to kind of talk through some of the issues. I mean, Elon's
why did he quit?
Because he didn't feel like even still the company was really operating efficiently. Like,
okay.
Like his ideas weren't, you know, he wasn't having impact. He wasn't having the impact that he wanted to have. So he was kind of like, well, I'm not just going to sit here and not have impact. So, you know, they were even talking about, I mean, like the layoffs have gotten so bad that like the downscaling, apparently like the food is really bad now. Not that like you should even expect food.
Right.
To be honest.
Right.
But they talked about open sourcing the code. Elon yet again said, yeah, we should probably just publish it somewhere. Didn't make a commitment to it. But then like the main gist of it is that everybody seems to agree that like the code base itself is a total mess. And it's very expensive to run. Mm-hmm. So it's like, because I think they have just all of these big infrastructures running for various components of the site, like Spaces, and you know, Spaces is like a separate infrastructure from the main stack, and those are kind of like tied together. So yeah, they're talking, you know, like bankruptcy. Elon, he said he thinks he can make it break even next year, but it's just chaos. Basically, the gist of it is it's chaos, and it's very difficult to balance all of the priorities when you're
Right.
spending so much money and trying to just get the business to be even able to be a business.
Yeah. Yeah, and they still have thousands of users that still, don't really have any real path to redemption. I did hear from Ron Coleman today, so it'll be interesting to pick his brain on like how the legal landscape has changed with, because there are a ton of lawsuits against Twitter for accounts and other things. It'd be interesting to kind of.
Well, yeah, I mean, George pressed him on the whole, Paul Graham. Have you heard of him?
No.
So he got banned the other day when they rolled out that stupid, like, no linking to, these sites policy that they then rolled back. But Paul Graham basically is like, I think he's one of the founders of Y Combinator. He's like a tech legend, basically, huge investor, kind of billionaire guy. And he got banned, and he's like a very smart guy. Like he got banned for posting Mastodon.
Oh,
and
Mastodon.
It's just like, it's not as if he's not even left wing. He just joined Mastodon just because, like, a lot of people who are going to Mastodon are on the left, but he just was going there just, I don't know, because I mean,
like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly, curiosity.
Yeah.
And so they called Elon out for that, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that we made a mistake. Post as many Mastodon links as you want." And like, yeah, it was a mistake to ban Paul Graham, but like, how can you make that mistake? Like,
right?
How? What? Where is your head at that that's the mistake you're making? There's a lot of mistakes to make, but like, why aren't the mistakes you're making like giving too much free speech?
Right.
Like, if that even is a thing.
Right. Well, it just seems like nothing's really like thought out very well. Like, I understand Elon's very impulsive, and that's great. And it's interesting watching a CEO, especially in the tech world, be as impulsive in public as he is. But it kind of almost seems like some of the ideas and the policies and the things that are coming up with, it's just like they're not taking it like to the next step. It's like, okay, we don't like Elon Jet account, so we're going to ban all these other links from other platforms. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how does that, take it to the next step? Okay, if we do that, then what could be the outcome? Like, it just seems like they're just very like, even selling the blue thing, which I agreed with 100%. That's one of their largest assets is the giving people their blue check marks. And I think there should be a price attached to that. I think that's really smart. But then thinking about, okay, how does that affect, imposters or people that are trying to game the system? Like, they just didn't take it like to the next step. Like, for me, just like looking from the outside, that's just kind of my perception. Like, it just doesn't seem very, like, it hasn't been workshopped, like some of these decisions, like.
Right. For sure. And, but the funny thing with the banning the links rollout was that they actually did have like this Twitter support blog that they wrote about it. And so like,
yeah,
they actually did put some thought in it, but it was a very shallow amount of thought. And yeah, I mean, I honestly, I'm a little bit, I'll say it, not that I think that Elon is going to listen to this, but I think that what he should do is have like, a higher tier of Twitter, even like much higher, where, Twitter X or whatever, and it's like 1,000 a month. I think that there are, and it, whatever perks it gives you, I think that there are so many people who just like the new Twitter, and want to support them, that they should just do that.
Do you think they need a separate Twitter, or is it like maybe like a separate, like some kind of tricked out feature that they get?
No, that's what I mean. It would be like you could get Twitter Blue for $8, but then you get Twitter X for like 1,000.
Gotcha. So it would still be Twitter. It's just like you get extra.
Yeah, it'd still be Twitter, but it would just be like supercharged Twitter. And I just think that even though like that's obviously cost prohibitive to most people, like, you know, there's a lot of people who just have money and they want to support things that they want to support.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And has there been any update on his poll that he did? I'm still getting caught up.
yeah, he lost.
Yeah, I know he lost. Is there like a plan?
He said that I'm gonna find a replacement.
Okay. So Bill Ottman, we'll get you in there.
No, I actually posted that meme. You know,
after hearing all the nightmares.
Well, I'm not gonna leave mines behind, but if mines can
integrate us, right?
Yeah, of course I would. Yeah, of course. I would have conditions though.
Yeah.
I would have various conditions that I would need to be able to implement.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just go be CEO and not be able to implement my ideas. So
right. Kind of like what the other gentleman was saying, right? Exactly.
Like, I would need to be able to kind of architect it similarly to mines and open source everything and encrypt everything and monetize everything in the way that I know that it should be done. But yeah, I mean, of course. But anyway, I was going to say, because Elon did this tweet, like the people who want power should never get it or should never be given. And I actually watched Gladiator over the weekend for the first time in like a decade or two. Yeah. Such a good movie.
Yeah.
But there's this part, I posted this meme about this where Maximus is being asked to like take over by Marcus Aurelius, and he says, you know, in my heart I cannot, and then Marcus Aurelius says, and you know, that is why it must be you.
Yeah.
Because you like won't accept it. And so it is kind of funny just seeing all these people thirsty for
yeah, I know,
thirsty for the position. It's
but
like,
I think it's like,
bro, like you're not gonna get no one who's publicly posting like this is why I should be CEO of Twitter. Like it's just no, it's not gonna happen.
Okay, I agree with you in sentiment. However, the rules on Twitter are crazy. So like I was talking to ALX at TPO. He was a great guy. You know, he had a really good conversation, and we debated a little bit on the Elon jet and whether or not it's blackmail and stalking and all that. And so I was asking him, you know, I said, hey, you know, we have this Twitter account that we'd like to get unbanned. And, you know, he seems to be like one of the people that's in the know, you know, with like how to do that. And he was like, man, yeah, it's like so hard. He's like, one of the most effective ways that I've seen is just adding Elon on Twitter, which it kind of goes against, you know, like all traditional wisdom of like how to, you know, go through a process and all that stuff. But he was like, yeah, I've seen, he's like, that seems to be like the most effective. So with that in mind, who knows? Maybe you do put up a major tweet and then Elon's okay, you know, you're the CEO. Like, I don't know.
I mean, I think, yeah, that's true. That's actually true.
Like, I don't know anymore.
Maybe. But it just seems, yeah, I guess I wouldn't cast off the possibility.
Right.
So.
Right. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, you know, like what happens with it and, you know, how much Elon's really committed, because now the rubber's hitting the road with the cost and how much money they're losing, and the advertisers having issues with them. So yeah, you know, it's going to be very interesting, and it's happening very quickly. So that's the other thing.
Cool. Well, yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Get Minds Plus.
Get Minds Plus.
If you want to support Minds, get minds.com/plus. Yeah. Help us out. Boost your content is another great way to support us. Yeah. Sign up. Make a post. There's a little boost button on there. And you will get better reach. You know, if you're a small creator, medium-sized creator out there trying to get your message out, you will have more success on Minds than on Twitter. The thing is that people will sit around for a decade on Twitter and still have like 300 followers.
Yep.
I mean, you need to have a release valve. And yeah, that's what we provide. So, but again, I agree on the integration with Twitter, and I would definitely do that. So, anything else you want to touch on, Sean?
Yeah, I know. Just the other thing too, like when I was talking to people at TPUSA, introducing them to Minds, like all the different vendors and media and all that, like we actually do have processes in place to pay the creators. Like one of the things I always bring up, it's like if Twitter, Facebook, if all the people on that platform actually value their time and stop posting because they're not getting paid, like those platforms die. Like, I know YouTube's done a good job where people have made careers off of being full-time
Yeah.
YouTubers because they've actually paid their creators. So, it's one thing we strive to do is to pay people for posting on the platform, and then also giving them an option, a realistic option to advertise to other people where they'll actually see the ad and be able to interact with whatever it is that they're selling, and everyone's selling something. So it was really good conversation with them. And instead of paying Facebook $10,000 a month, and they give you back numbers that don't necessarily mean anything, like you will get actual interaction with whatever you're putting out there. So
Yeah, absolutely. Cool stuff, man. All right. Thanks, guys.
thanks, everyone.